GPT 5.6 Sol outputs tokens 8.3 times faster than Grok 4.5, but it costs 5 times more per million tokens, $30 versus $6, and that gap is real enough to change which one you should actually be running. Both models dropped recently and people are already building on them, so timing matters here. I'm comparing Grok 4.5 versus GPT 5.6 Sol across 5 real tests. Speed, reasoning, cost, context, and hallucination, and every number comes from verified sources, no vendor money, no cherry picking. And honestly, the part that surprised me most wasn't the speed gap or the price gap. It was what happened when I looked at GPT 5.6 Sol's advertised context window versus what it actually delivers in the real world, and whether that flips the decision for you. All right, so who is this actually for? If you're a developer, a startup, or anyone calling an API at scale, the wrong pick here costs real money fast. Grok 4.5 at $6 per million output tokens versus GPT 5.6 Sol at $30 is not a small rounding error. And at high volume, that's the difference between a project that's profitable and one that isn't. Test 1, real-time reasoning speed. If your app streams answers to a user and the tokens trickle out slowly, people close the tab. And that's not a theory, that's just what happens. A slow model in a live product feels broken, even when it's technically correct, and you end up shipping a worse experience because the output rate couldn't keep up. Okay, so what I looked at was raw output tokens per second. Grok 4.5 came in at 90 tokens per second, measured independently on a 10,000 input workload. GPT 5.6 Sol clocks 750 tokens per second, though that's a vendor claim on Cerebras hardware, so these aren't identical test setups. Still, 90 versus 750 is a pretty hard gap to argue with. GPT 5.6 Sol takes speed, and it's not close. I was expecting a gap, but 8.3 times faster is way bigger than I thought it would be. And for anything streaming in real time, Grok 4.5's 90 tokens per second just doesn't compete. That puts GPT 5.6 Sol up 1-0 on the scoreboard. Test 2, complex reasoning accuracy. When a model gets a multi-step problem wrong, you don't always catch it right away. You ship it, a user hits it, and now you're debugging a wrong answer that looked totally confident, and that's the kind of thing that quietly wrecks trust in a product over time. What surprised me is that the gap is real, even if it's not enormous. On the Intelligence Index version 4.1, Grok 4.5 scores 53.83, measured by artificial analysis. GPT 5.6 Sol comes in around 59.86, though that's an OpenAI estimate based on their claim of being within 1 point of Fable 5, so take it with a grain of salt. Even so, that's a roughly 6-point lead for GPT 5.6 Sol on the only direct comparison we have. GPT 5.6 Sol wins reasoning too, and honestly, I thought Grok 4.5 would be closer given how cheap it is, but 53.83 versus 59.86 is a moderate lead that holds up even with the vendor caveat on GPT 5.6 Sol score. GPT 5.6 Sol is now up 2-0, and Grok 4.5 really needs to come back strong on cost. Test 3, API pricing. Run 1 million output tokens through the wrong model, and you just spend $30 instead of $6, and do that 100 times in a month, and you've added $2,400 to your bill for the exact same outputs, which isn't a rounding error. That's a real budget line that can kill a side project or squeeze a startup's runway. I pulled official pricing for both, and the numbers are pretty clear. Grok 4.5 runs $6 per million output tokens and $2 per million input tokens. GPT 5.6 Sol is $30 per million output tokens and $5 per million input tokens. So that's a 5-to-1 gap on outputs, which is the number that actually matters most in most production workloads. Grok also has a free tier and a $30 per month Super Grok subscription. Grok 4.5 wins cost, and it's not subtle. I was expecting a price gap, but 5 times cheaper on outputs is way more than I'd call a minor advantage. $6 versus $30 per million tokens, that's the score. So now it's GPT 5.6 Sol 2, Grok 4.51, and this is where the comparison gets genuinely interesting. Test 4, context window and document handling. If your model quietly drops the tail end of a long document, it won't tell you, it'll just answer as if it read everything, and you'll get a confident wrong answer. Feed a big code base or a long contract into a model with a broken context window, and you're going to miss things that matter. So what I found here was really interesting. Grok 4.5 advertises a 500,000 token context window, and that's what it delivers. No reported regression. GPT 5.6 Sol advertises 1 million tokens, which sounds like a clear win, but a community test in Codex CLI found it regressed to around 258,000 tokens in practice. So the advertised number and the real number are pretty far apart right now. Now, I want to be honest here, because this one's genuinely hard to call. The 258,000 regression for GPT 5.6 Sol comes from one community report in a specific environment, so it might not affect every use case. And Grok's 500,000 is stable but still smaller than what GPT 5.6 Sol is supposed to deliver. The gap is smaller than a spec sheet makes it look, and it really depends on whether that regression gets fixed. This one's a tie, and honestly, I was expecting GPT 5.6 Sol to run away with it on paper. A million tokens versus 500,000 sounds decisive, but when the effective window drops to 258,000 in real tests, Grok 4.5's stable 500,000 actually comes out ahead in practice right now. So we can't call a winner, and the score stays GPT 5.6 Sol to Grok 4.51 with one tied. Test 5 factual hallucination rates. This one hits hard in production because a model that confidently makes up financial figures or legal details doesn't give you a warning. The user reads it, trusts it, acts on it, and by the time you catch the error, the damage is done. And that's a support ticket or a lawsuit, not just a bad output. Okay, so I looked at what we actually have here, and I have to be straight with you. One community report flags Grok 4.5's hallucination rate as high, but there's no specific number attached to it, so it's unverified. And GPT 5.6 Sol has zero published hallucination data, which is the whole picture, and there's genuinely nothing comparable to show. The hard truth is neither model publishes real hallucination rates in production, which is kind of wild when you think about it. We can't say GPT 5.6 Sol is better here, just because it has no data, and we can't say Grok 4.5 is worse based on one unverified claim with no methodology attached. So this dimension is genuinely a black box for both. No winner here, another tie. I was expecting at least one of them to have published something useful, but neither did, so the final score lands at GPT 5.6 Sol to Grok 4.51 with two tests tied, and that scoreboard shapes the decision pretty clearly if you know what you're optimizing for. So here's where Grok 4.5 clearly wins. The price is $6 per million output tokens, 5 times cheaper than GPT 5.6 Sol. It has a free tier and a $30 per month Super Grok plan, so you can try it without a credit card. And its 500,000 context window is stable with no regressions, no surprises, which right now is more than GPT 5.6 Sol can say. Now, here's where GPT 5.6 Sol clearly wins. It's 8.3 times faster on raw output, 750 tokens per second versus 90, which is a real difference in any live streaming product. And it scores higher on the intelligence index at 59.86 versus 53.83. So if reasoning quality is your top priority and cost is secondary, GPT 5.6 Sol is the stronger model right now. Honestly, I went in thinking GPT 5.6 Sol would dominate, but the cost gap made me reconsider the whole thing. Here's the decision rule. If you need raw speed and top reasoning and your budget can handle $30 per million output tokens, go GPT 5.6 Sol. But if you're running high volume or you're cost sensitive, Grok 4.5 at $6 wins. $6. That number is the whole argument.